Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We're getting ready for the draft this weekend in Nashville, Tennessee. This guy is in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I enjoyed a little stay down there until the football game started. And Cam Newton enjoyed his day up here in Baltimore at the Torrey Smith basketball game. This guy's getting ready for fantasy season 365, also the draft. He is one of my friends to have on here, and during the season we talk a lot of football, and I have not had Vinnie Iyer on maybe since like right around Super Bowl time. It's been a couple of months, Vin. How are you? Last time we chatted, let's see, Terrell Suggs was going to be a Raven for life, right? And C.J. Mosley might have stayed, and Eric Weddle could have stayed, and Joe Flacco wasn't a Bronco. Boy, a lot of things have changed, huh?
Yeah, this is a much younger team than just a couple months ago, and head in that direction, and lose Zadarius Smith as well in free agency. So just going to be some unfamiliar pieces that they're going to have to put together defensively there in Baltimore, and figuring out some things offensively as well, where they go transitioning all the way to the Lamar Jackson offense. I think Mark Ingram going out to get him indicates that they want to be power running team first and set things up later in the passing game. So They've had a veteran defense and solid guys they could trust in the front seven. Those things are gone as they rebuild there. And offensively, they're going a different direction with the running game, maybe use multiple tight ends. So from what we were used to for a long time with the Ravens, they're completely different going into this draft.
Vinnie Iyer is doing all things at Sporting News for the draft, including you poor SOBs, man. I didn't have to do this back in the 90s when I was like so fully on the beat, which was the mock draft, and then ripping it up, and then ripping it up again, and then ripping it up. But it does create nice content, and I guess it gives you a chance to move around, that whatever you write in February, you can laugh at by April, and we'll all be laughing at each other by Monday when I'll be mocking all the mock drafts. But it is part of what you do. You know, fun for you, or are you ready for this damn thing to be done, Vin?
Well, it's fun to me to explore and think about what teams need and what they might be thinking. I think that's what you're basically going in with mock drafts. You're not going to get these picks close to right because it's a domino effect. If one guy goes that you project somewhere going lower, then it's going to change everything, and everything's out of whack anyway. But
or somebody makes a trade, right? Then all hell breaks loose.
Right? Everything is going to go away, but it's more just to realize, okay, this team is on this type of player for their scheme, or they're looking for defensive help more than offensive help, or they're looking for future help versus immediate help. So you're just trying to lay out all the potential chess pieces on their board, see how they could move them and manipulate them in the first round. So a team, I think you feel good if your team has different players mocked to them more consistently, whether it's one version to another or one pundit to another, because that says they've got a pretty good draft situation where they have the options. Where you start to get locked into one player, then you're a little bit more concerned, because you have to keep flexible in the draft. A bigger thing than anything else is that keep your head on a swivel. Some player that you may never expect falls to you, or you get into a situation where somebody's giving you a big bounty of other draft picks and you take it. So it's just fun to consider all the possibilities.
Vinny, Nick Bosa is the best player in the draft, right? I mean, I sense that from almost everyone, yet we're all playing with this Kyler Murray possibility. And look, this time last year, we're talking about Josh Rosen, right? Maybe being the top 5 guy and who was going to move up. And the Cardinals have tried him on, and I guess like socks taking him off, and now they want to throw him out. Williams at the top of this draft, obviously Josh Allen as well. You have all sort of the usual suspects here, but it's hard to make a case against Bosa. I haven't seen anybody make the case against him.
Yeah, there's nobody really making a case against him. And really, if Kyler Murray wasn't a factor, he would be the number 1 pick by the Cardinals. But right now, the 49ers have to be loving this, the team that loves it the most. And I see a lot of trade downs for the 49ers from number 2, and I'm like, why would they do that? You're going to get the best player of the draft at number 2. Your team is only picking number 2 because your quarterback towards ACL. You might be picking a lot lower than that and not have a shot at a player like this. So to me, you got to just sit there and take advantage of it. You have a potentially great defensive line with DeForest Buckner and Solomon Thomas and Bosa together. That's pretty scary, that front right there. So that completes your defense here. And he's just so complete. He does everything really well. I think the one concern was the time off and the injury creates some rust. I think he's totally shaken that off and said, no, he's still the dominant player that everyone thinks he can be. So I look at him being the number one. I think then you can kind of put these other guys based on your scheme, Quinnen Williams and Josh Allen and Montez Sweat and Rashawn Gary, Ed Oliver. They're pretty all over the board close, but I think it's more about what team and coach and defensive scheme can get the most out of those guys. Well, Nick Bosa, you plug him in any defense and outside linebacker, he's going to be awesome.
Vinnie Iyer can be followed out on Twitter at Vinnie Iyer. That's VINNIEIYER. He's out of Sporting News. Full coverage out there, including his mock draft. And, I joke about ripping it up, and you and I don't green room much before you come on the air, but you're like, I don't worry about the Ravens pick. It's not going to change in the next mock. You have Garrett Bradbury, the center from North Carolina State, Wolfpack, coming up to be a part of this thing, and I don't think that's far-fetched, but you could have put a wide receiver in there. You could have put an rush edge in there. You could have put an inside linebacker in there. You could have put a guard in there. I mean, at any point, wide receiver. The Ravens have some needs here, far more needs than most teams that drafted 22 that just played a home playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those teams that, with their history of drafting, they have literally gone in every direction. And it's one team that's really hard to figure out, and a lot of times they get it right, and a few of the times they get it wrong. But I think wide receiver has become a popular pick here of late, and I can see why, but I also don't know if that's the forced identity of this team. And that's another thing that's fun to figure out here is, do you get another anchor for this offensive line? You plug in Garrett Bradbury, he's going to be your starting center for probably 8 to 10 years, and you're going to feel very good about it, anchoring it the way that Marshall Yanda has been right there, interior line domination for years. So with Yanda and Bradbury, that's a pretty good combination to kind of hand over the reins there and keep it going, at least for a little while together. So when you think of the identity of this team, I think that's the way they have to go. And I don't know if like a Marquise Brown or an A.J. Brown fits exactly what they're trying to do right now, because you had John Brown come in and it worked for a while with Joe Flacco, but it completely didn't work when it was Lamar Jackson. So it will be interesting to see what they do. And I also think you can get some better wide receiver values in other rounds as well. So that is also going to play a factor into the Ravens' thinking.
Vinny, are you a fan of Lamar Jackson at this point, thinking like this has all been a real good idea, the way they've done this? I mean, I think the way it was orchestrated to pick him with 32, we don't have a pick on Friday early on, and 2 late picks in the sandwich pick for the Ravens. But if they're in love with Lamar Jackson, and they are, then this has all worked out great and just sort of to the plan. We made the playoffs. We got rid of Joe. We've dumped the salary. We didn't overspend on Mosley, but now we've got to replace him. Suggs didn't want our deal. Oh, well. Maybe we won't be as good this year, but maybe the Steelers won't be as good this year. We all know the Browns are going to go 16-0, right, Vin?
Yeah. Yeah, the hype is good. I think I hear one more win every time I hear about the Browns being talked about. It started at 9 and went to 10, 11, 12. I think we might be up to 18, even though that's impossible. But I'm sure we'll be up to 18 before July and training camp starts.
Oh, don't think we haven't heard it here, and don't think there's not a part of me deep in my belly that laughs a little bit. And that's a guy that actually likes Cleveland. I'm not the guy that hates Cleveland. I'm appreciative they gave us our football team, Vin.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun watching the Ravens transition. I think sometimes you want to keep things interesting. I know with Lamar Jackson, there was some skepticism early, but what the Ravens did was brilliant. They tailored their team to your quarterback's strengths when he's young. And then the quarterback is going to start learning things. You can open up more of the playbook, do more of the things that you want to do in a traditional offense. But when you have a talent that's unique and special in certain areas and running the ball, and I think that intangibles category really showed with Lamar Jackson. He handles himself well, led this team well. The team rallied around having him out there. So all the hard parts are over. Now it's those little parts that can make you that quarterback that really is all around in this game, where it's the mechanics and the footwork and throwing downfield and the accuracy and all that. So these are things that he has the physical gifts that can be improved on. The mental is something you can't teach or is innate in only a few quarterbacks, and Lamar Jackson has that.
Well, he's special, and now what do we do with it? Can you win a championship with it? Can you win a couple of championships with it? But can you build around it maybe for less money, maybe with different kinds of players in the draft than what other teams are looking for? Maybe, right? I mean, I guess that is sort of the value proposition of what we're doing here is load up on fat backs, load up on offensive linemen, find some wide receivers and tight ends that can block and catch. And, blocking wide receivers, that's kind of like looking for a unicorn, right?
Yeah, I mean, and if you want one of those guys, again, you can use that pick on a later round, and you'll be just as happy for all the other little things and aspects he's going to get done in your offense. Because I just don't think forcing a field stretcher in that first pick is the way to go. We know tight end is not going to be an issue either when they used the Hayden Hurst pick last year and also got Mark Andrews. So, they're not going in that direction. So it's kind of easier to figure out where the Ravens are not going to figure out where they will be going in the draft.
Vinnie Iyer covers all things football, including the fantasy world, including the Cleveland Browns fantasies of having a championship when Vinnie and I get together in Miami Beach next February. Hopefully, Joe Flacco's an interesting story around here, and he walked out on the field last week, and we saw the first glimpses of what he looks like in Broncos gear for real and not an airbrush. A believer in him to any degree that he will quarterback a playoff version of the Denver Broncos at any point?
I don't think so. I think he's there basically to be a bridge quarterback, and I know they have high expectations. They're trying to grind it through in their own way, really. Defense, they're hoping that Von Miller and Bradley Chubb and Vic Fangio's influence, they're going to really shut down teams there and go old school with Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman and win some games. So I think that's what they're expecting, and that tells me that they're not expecting Joe Flacco to sit in there and be the guy that we've seen get hot, throw the ball downfield. That's not what they're asking for him now. And I think, to me, the Joe Flacco move over Case Keenum represents that John Elway might actually be ready to stay out of another draft. I think that Paxton Lynch pick is still fresh wound there for Denver. And I don't think they're going to force Dwayne Haskins or Drew Lock the way that some of us have been thinking pretty often here. But I think Joe Flacco, he's just a guy to get them through to the next draft where we know the prizes start to get better with Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert.
For you with this draft and seeing the Mike Mayock's making picks now, right, and new coaches, and this is an interesting weekend, I think, for all the fans, and certainly for your website and for what you do, to start thinking about fantasy, start thinking about their own team, who their coordinator is, who their new players are, but also, hey, where's Nick Foles? Oh, look, he's in Jacksonville. They're on the clock. All the general managers, all the coaches, all the new players, the celebrities, the booing of Goodell, the country music. This is a weekend where we play football for a weekend, and for that, I'm happy. I sort of liked it better Saturday and Sunday as a weekend endeavor as opposed to a Thursday, Friday night kind of an endeavor. But that being said, I know it's been big business, and I know that there's a part of it that allows all of us to sort of get on the clock with recharging for football right now.
Yeah, and this is why the Alliance kind of had the skeptics and why things didn't work out as much. Because the Alliance, when we had that little lull after the Super Bowl, it's like, where's football? And then, here's football again with free agency and the draft talk taking over. And
it wasn't lost on us the morning we woke up and Suggs and Mosley and they were all gone.
Yeah. So the game has never really stopped, and it's a different kind of game. And now it involves all 32 teams, where you just had two teams playing the Super Bowl. Now everyone's involved, everyone's transitioning, everyone's hoping to get there. So, and it's exciting because you're taking it to another level with primetime free coverage, if you will, with ABC. So now they've realized it's an event. There's a lot of great stories, individual players from Quinnen Williams down, just with their journeys to this draft. And people love that just as much as where these guys are going in the draft.
Who's your favorite player? Give me a player that's going to be a really good football player in this league. And, I've seen all the names here. I know you've scouted the top 500 guys. Give me a player or two or three that if the Ravens get that guy, and not, don't give me Quinnen Williams, you know what I mean? Give me somebody that's going to be a tweener first, second, third round guy, a guy maybe I have not heard of yet.
Yeah, I think one guy that I really like is Miles Boykin of Notre Dame. If I can get him in a later round, I think that would be a good kind of connection with Lamar Jackson. I think there's a lot of little things to like about him, and I think he can be really special here soon.
Thought that the Ravens would be in the market to get that kind of player. I mean, that's an interesting sort of. I think the Ravens are going to take a quarterback this weekend. I believe that.
Yeah, I think that's another position I would definitely look at as well. And you got to look at maybe a Tyree Jackson of Buffalo, someone to look at later in the draft as well. So he could be someone to stash there as well behind Lamar Jackson. So there's a lot of ways this team can go, and it's very interesting to see what the Ravens are going to do round by round. And I think they're going to be one of the more unpredictable teams out there.
Trading back, trading up, we'll be paying attention. We'll be following along. Vinny, always a pleasure to have you on the program, get your insights. And I know fantasy's your jam, so this all sets up for how the fantasy season begins, too.
Yeah, definitely. And might be waiting a little while for the impact players in fantasy to come off the board. But Josh Jacobs, that name, watch for where he goes, because he's going to step into a 3-down role that we're used to with Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. We had Josh Jacobs on at the Super Bowl. His agent is Baltimore-based, Maryland-based. How about that? So that's kind of a good story there as well. Vinny is out at Sporting News and Vinnie Iyer, VINNIEIYER. You can follow him out on Twitter as well as at Sporting News through the draft. Having all of our draft friends on here before the draft. We'll have plenty of coverage after the draft as well. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I am on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNS TV channel. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.